other online session are going to, I invited some experts for each session to talk about a topic around culture decarbonization. So it's going to be a bit more light. So today is going to be a bit intense in terms of learning. So feel free to maybe take a sheet of paper and some pen, because taking notes might help you following the session. That's it. So I'm going to give you like almost a class, like the one I gave to my Sorbonne students about energy and climate stakes. So is everyone okay with that? So today there might be not much discussion, but we will have more time to speak next Tuesday. Okay? So let me share you the presentation. Ok. Bruno, c'est mieux de partager l'écran. Ouais, il faut que je partage l'écran en fait. Alors, attendez, je me mets juste en... I will just put on... So I won't be able to see you when I will share my my screen. So if you have any question, feel free to stop me and tell me if you didn't understand something, because I won't be able to see the chat. Okay?
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. So I see you. Perfect. So decarbonized culture is about how do we reduce our greenhouse gas emission also in the cultural fields. So this is the second workshop of LeCake, which is led by the Shift project. So I will start maybe by remind some of you what the Shift is. So the Shift is a non-profit organization. We are an association which is committed to put the climate and energy stakes in the center of our economic world and in French society. So we aim at influencing the debate on the energy transition. So basically what we do is we write reports, and then we try to influence decision makers, so politics, but also economic leaders and blah, blah, blah. We are about 20 in the Shift, but we have many, many volunteers, almost 20,000. So we have a lot of help from volunteers. We will go back to later if you want to talk about the Shift. This is not the main point today. So I will go fast on the beginning. Why am I here? I'm here because I helped coordinate the report on culture, which was Decarbonized Culture, which was one of the first reports with Julie's Bicycle, who will tackle these stakes in the cultural field. This is all the people who write the report with me, and you might see some of them when you come in Paris in November. So, energy and climate stakes in culture. So first, what is energy? When we think about energy, the first thing that comes in mind usually is electricity. When you think energy is like when you plug something and it gives you electricity to make it work. But energy is more complex. Energy helps you change temperature, speed, and shape. So basically, energy is at the core of all the world changing. And the more energy you have, the fastest your world is changing. So really, energy is making your world change. But this is a simple rule. This is physics rule. So I won't make it further. But what you need to understand is your bodies are the first converters. Energy is everywhere. So to have energy, we eat biomass, we eat food, and then our bodies convert it into power. So for instance, you have what power your arms gave you and what your legs gave you. Your arms gave you 10 watts of power and your legs 100 watts. Okay. So what does it mean? Because watts is like when you didn't do a physics course, it's like a really abstract. So for instance, you know this object. You can use it to make soup, etc. This object has a power of 400 watts. So if you want to make it work through your body, so through the first converter that exists before all the industrial time, we'll have to have 4 people on bikes, like doing all the work with full power to just make it work. And with the arms, it will, if you want, you will need 20 arms to make it work. Just to have a little bit of comparison. A vacuum cleaner is 10 cyclists and 100 arms. A vacuum cleaner. Just to make you understand. When you have fossil energy makes the energy you can use around you so much more powerful, because oil makes plane, buses, cars, boats. It enables you to use more powerful converter than your arms or your legs. So basically, what the shift's trying to say for 10 years now is that oil is giving you superpowers. Because we all use superpowers through the way we move, the way we eat, the way we use machines, and all these machines that we use every day for everything. We use all the machines that are used in agriculture, we use it to eat. All the machines that we use to move around the world, or the machine that we use to live in buildings that have been built, all these machines, this is thanks to fossil fuels. So fossils are at the core, functioning of our society. And if you compare the power that the machines are giving you every day, it's as if 600 people will work for you, around you every day. Like almost 600 slaves are at your disposal every minute of every day in Occidental society. For the world, it's 200 only, but we are in Europe. It's 600. Just to make you understand what machines are giving us, what power they are giving us. If you want, so 1 liter of oil, what does it mean? 1 liter of oil, if you put it in a car, you can do approximately 13 kilometers in 13 minutes, okay? The power that is in 1 liter of oil compared to the power that your body, that your arms gives you, you will do the 13 kilometers in 2 months if you need to push the car. 30 minutes, 2 months. This is the difference that fossil fuels are giving you. So what you see here is globally the proof of what I'm saying. You see, the more oil we use, the more energy we use years after years, the richer we get. The more power we use, this is the more GDP we make. So fossil fuels make the economic growth. It has been like this since the end of 19th century. So what happens if we don't have any more fossil fuels? Globally, we don't have any more machines, so we lose our power. This is like the consequence of this hypothesis. So we spend our days using prostheses of a costume, which is made of fossil fuels, which are powering the machines that we use and give us superpowers. So no more superpowers if we don't have fossil fuels. Yes, but we have renewable energy. So if we replace fossil fuels with renewable energy, everything is going to be okay. Yes, but we had 100% renewable world before, which was before the Industrial Revolution. And a world which is 100% renewable, it can exist, it has existed, but it doesn't go as fast as our world goes, and it doesn't enable us to feed I think more than a few thousand hundreds of people. So the 100% renewable world has already existed, but it was not fit for the world as we know it today. For instance, you have the part of energy that we use since the 19th century. So the first line you see is biomass. Basically, it's wood to heat, wood to make trains work. So you see, we use wood before. Then we discover coal, and coal was really more useful to make trains go faster, to make electricity. Coal is the first thing that we put in all the electricity factories. Then we discover oil, and oil is the energy that we use for mobility. It's in the cars, in the trucks. It's really useful. Then you see gas. Gas was really useful to heat buildings because you have more energy in it than in the coal, and it was and in biomass. So it was easier to heat buildings with gas. And then you see up, in all the bottom, you have nuclear power, and then you have renewable powers. This is the little bit up there. So what does that mean? It means that there is no substitution. Humans are using more and more energy. As soon as they discover another type of energy, they use it for another use. There has been no replacement. And you see the carbon energy that we use is like 82% of the energy that we use worldwide. So you see, it's you've seen it when you did the fresque. The more energy we use, the more emissions we have around us. So you have all the emissions since the beginning of 19th century, since the end of 19th century. But it's okay. We have the Paris Agreement, so we're okay. Yes, I know it was a great moment, but You see, this is the Paris Agreement scenarios. The fourth, sorry, it's in French. So the above, you have Scénario Politique 2010, Scénario Politique Actuel, so current politics of reducing emission of all the parties of the Paris Agreement, all the countries that sign it. And then you have some other scenarios. And down there you have the path to be below 2 degrees, the yellow path to be below 1.8 degrees, and the last one, the path to be below 1.5 degrees. So what we see that all the parties that take the agreements, all the scenarios that are currently in place, their politics, doesn't meet the agreement. So above it's the reality, and below it's what we signed for. So there is like doesn't match. But is it a problem? 5 degrees, is it hot? Is it really hot? Because 5 degrees, like what I go between 19 degrees to 25 degrees, it's okay. I just remove my sweater and it's fine. But not exactly if you think about climate. Climate is not weather. So you see, -5 degrees is the image on the left. And basically, -5 degrees, all Europe was under ice. There were kilometers and kilometers of ice in Northern Europe, like 5 meters of ice, 3 kilometers of ice. And then it was almost like Siberia below. So France was like Siberia. There were no trees. And it enables to feed about 1,000 people maximum. It was dry and cold. So it was a totally different climate than today. And the only difference is 5 degrees. So 4 degrees. What does it mean, 4 degrees? 4 degrees, as you see in all the red, you have half of South America, you have half of Africa, where every day of the year, you are above the deathly threshold. The deathly threshold, maybe you've seen it when you did the climate risk, is when you have so much, the temperature is below 37 degrees, that there is so much humidity, like more than 85% of humidity, that you cannot sweat. And if you cannot sweat, you cannot you cannot make your body cold. So if you're above 37, your body temperature, so you cannot cool yourself. So you die because you're too hot. So imagine how many people are going to live in places on Earth where every day of the year, if you go outside, you die. Imagine how many climate refugees is going to make, how many people are going to leave their homes. So 4 degrees is like very, very, very bad also. What about 3 degrees, which is currently the path we are on, 3 degrees. 3 degrees, as you see all the part in purple and in red, we're going to have problems. We're going to have food supply instabilities. We're going to have tropical crop decline. We are going to have permafrost degradation. So we're going to lose a lot of ice. We're going to lose a lot of trees. The sea level is going to rise. Bref, 3 degrees, a lot of problem also. And 2 degrees. So 2 degrees, as you see, is all the perturbation of the rainforest around the world. So they're going to have part of the world are going to make drier and drier, like all the Mediterranean Sea is going to be more and more dry. They're going to be more and more fires, water supplies problem. And they're to be part of the world where it's going to rain so much, they're going to be floods and all the kind of problems. So they're going to have a lot of perturbation. But the way we need to understand climate change, and I think you do now with all the things you learned in the previous workshop, that is not it's not like a it's not a rise, a slow rise. It's like losing a step. It's all it's the intensity of the natural catastrophe that are going to be more stronger and more frequent. So drought, storms, heat waves, wildfire, acidification of ocean and sea levels. It's not going to be slow and easy to apprehend. It's going to be like really difficult to manage. And the difference, if you want, it's WWF infography, which is interesting because it's a comparison between a climate change of 2 degrees and a climate change of 1.5 degrees. Just to understand that what change is not the content, it's the intensity and the frequency of everything happening. Like coral bleaching, acidification, water availability, and so on. So you see between the yellow stuff and the red stuff, the difference in percentage of risk of happening. The more the climate is going to warm itself, the more probability of having a lot of problems are rising. But I think that you already knew it, and you will have the presentation if you want to see in more details all this stuff. So what do we have to do to stay below 2 degrees? This is what you saw in the climate phase, but it means that we have to reduce by 80% our emission of greenhouse gas by 2050. It means that if we were to reduce by 5% each year our emissions, but what is 5%? 5% is what we had with the COVID in 2020, when we stop every economic activities for 2 months. This is minus 5%. So if we want to reduce by 5% each year, we will need to have another COVID every year. So this is just to have a comparison of what is at stake and what efforts have to be made. Reducing our emissions is not an easy. It's not an easy task. It's almost impossible the way our society is made. Just to make you tackle the challenge. So this is, and if we don't reduce by 5% since 2019, we need to reduce by 10% after 2025 in 2 years. The more we wait, the more we will have to reduce, and the more it will be problematic for society to adapt, because the changes are going to be so much that it will be difficult to do and to support. So here you have the carbon footprint of a French person. It's around 10 tons of CO2 by person per year. So in 11 years, we have to reduce it to 4 tons of CO2. And then in 20 years, we have to reach 2 tons of CO2 per person. This is, if you apply it to a person, this is the path we have to do. So we need a plan. That's what we try to apply for the cultural field. What does it mean for the cultural field to reduce its emission by 80%? So first we can ask, why do we need to do it? Because, okay, so every person needs to reduce by 80%, each economic sector, so okay, culture, but maybe there is some sectors that are far more polluting than culture. No, first, why? Why? Because culture is a really important economic player in Europe. It's almost like agriculture. And there is a lot of people who work in culture, like 9 million people in Europe. So there are a lot of people. And what the hypothesis we had is that the culture is at the heart of transition, but doesn't know it. And that is not represented in the energy climate stakes. So here you have the classical climate energy representation, and it shows you the economic sectors that use the more fossil fuels and have the more emissions, basically. So of course you have transport, but worldwide you have also power, because you have a lot of coal factories, coal electric centrals. I don't know the English for centrale à charbon. Coal, but the electricity is made of coal in China, in India, in US, and even a part in Germany use a lot of coal. Then there is transport, industry, and agriculture that use a lot of fossil fuels. And then building with the gas. We use gas to heat buildings. But we don't see culture. So is culture really, has culture an impact on the environment? And why does culture needs to reduce its emission if it's not represented in this chart? Because culture needs all the primary and secondary sectors to function. In its transport, it needs all this sector. And not only it has an impact, but it also has a dependency on fossil fuels. So it's at risk. First, agriculture and food. In culture, nobody eats, everybody eats. The teams, the artistic people, in venues, every public eats. So food as a significant source of emission in events is between 15 to 20% of the impact of cultural events. The food, which is directly linked to the impact of agriculture. Buildings. There is a lot of cultural buildings around Europe, museum, theater, operas, a lot of buildings. So these buildings need to be heated, they need to be refreshed, and they need to be repaired. And everything for this use machines, use cement, and every gas, and everything that depends on fossil fuels. So since culture adds buildings and use energy, it has an impact. Mobility and transport. We use a lot of mobility vectors to go around the world, to see shows, to see festivals, to make ones, to tour our artistic production. So culture and leisures are the third most important cause of mobility. In France, 64% of people goes to the cinema with their car. because everyone doesn't live in a city, and some of the cinemas facilities are outside the cities. So people basically took their cars to go to the cinema. Waste. There are a lot of waste in festival, and this is this summer some UK festivals. People leave the tents because they are so cheap. Like maybe they are 10 euros tent. So everybody are leaving the stuff on the site. 25,000 tons of waste of all the music festivals in UK this year. 58% of people are saying they left their stuff on site. Digital. Digital for now is between 3 to 4% of the world emissions. It's almost like plane transport, almost like plane fields. And why culture has a link to the digital world is because 70% of what you watch online is cultural content. So, European culture is at risk because it depends on fossil fuels, like any other sectors, but without risk measurement. But this was before the COVID epidemic. Now it has changed, and culture, I think, is a little bit more try to measure more what's going to happen. So culture has an impact and a dependency on fossil fuels. So if energy and climate constraints call for a new way of thinking or economy, a new way of thinking or transport or mobility or buildings, our industry, the way we consume energy, the way we use digital, of course, cultural activities needs to restructurate itself also. And I was much faster than I think I would have been. So I was thinking of waiting maybe a little bit to show you really the report, but maybe we have time to do it. We can maybe take like 20 minutes of question before introducing the report. What do you think?
Good idea.
Okay.
Good idea, Héloise. Maybe we can have a little discussion right now, then a 5-minute break, then a
and then I will have, I think the rest of the presentation is like 15 to 20 minutes max.
Cool. So thank you very much for this this presentation, Héloise. You published the Shift project published this report something like 2 years ago.
Yeah, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah. And did you collected interesting reactions from the cultural sector in France about what you've been doing, and do you feel that there are changes appearing?
Yeah, there are a lot of changes. The reaction we had, people are, really polite. So we were usually invited to present the report. So people were acted like we were invited. So they were always nice, and people will listen. And we had the expert hat. So usually people were not telling us this is bullshit, I don't care, there is some other problems, blah blah blah. But a few people, the reaction that we had sometimes when people wanted to tell us was, first, this is so like rich European centered that everybody has to make efforts, but the rest of Europe, like for instance the Eastern Europe or African countries, why do they have to restrain themselves when you didn't, because you were the problem? So this is all very nice what you're saying, but you cannot apply it to everyone. This was one of the reactions that stays with me, because I say, okay, this is interesting to see regarding of the country where you come from. You don't have the same sensibility, and you don't take the problem the same way. Then there was, what you propose is dark. It's like sobriety, you know, you cannot do anything anymore. Everything's going to be like really the end of culture. There was a lot of reactions like, it doesn't, it's not desirable what you are saying. They were reducing by 80%, stop mobility, blah, blah, blah. It was not desirable. So, and people had trouble to understand that we have no choice. Because I say, okay, if you don't want to, as a cultural actor, take the impact into account, and it's like a moralistic way of life. There is a problem, and I should do my part. If you don't want to do that, you will wait, but it's going to be harder for you, because as you see, there is a fossil fuels dependency, and fossil fuels are going scarce. We're gonna, in Europe, and this is, I think, some slide that I should show you, but Europe doesn't have any fossil fuels under its feet. So it depends on other countries, and all the wheels are going, the production is going down. I will show you the graph. So in a few years, I don't know if it's 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, we won't have so much oil, so much gas is going to go scarce, because natural resources are not infinite. So but it was difficult for them to understand that energy doesn't come from anywhere, that it's finite. It's not that it can stop itself, and one day you can push the button and you don't have any more electricity. It can happen, because we grew up in a world where we think energy was free, almost free, and infinite. And this is really a new way with the climate change to understand that there is a problem with the energy consumption, and energy is not an infinite source. So that was the second reaction we had. And what we were really proud of, what made us hopeful, was that there are some changes in the cultural actors. Cultural actors are trying to do some stuff about these climate change issues, the energy issues, but there is also a move on the political level in France with I don't know, how do you say, feuille de route, action plan. There is an action plan which is in preparation at the ministry level. So maybe it will be bullshit, but people are actually working on the subject. So it might be a roadmap. It might make a difference. It's like the beginning. It's only the beginning, but there is a beginning.
One little thing I want to mention, I suppose everybody knows about it, but your report is not only about telling the situation. It's also full of proposals divided into chapters. And this is really the topic now of this sequence of sessions you offer us to the LeCake project, yes, is to develop the different tracks, the different options we have to change. So it's not, we started with this observation of the situation, but for sure you are not coming without proposals and options for the future.
Yes.
Is there any other questions around the group?
Maybe I just take the voice. What I really liked about the presentation, Héloise, was the fact that you really highlighted how culture is responsible for emissions, because I'm struggling often in my work with this argument of culture is not the biggest emittent. So I think this was very nice to have this line of argument for the future. But my question is that often when we talk about culture, at least in Germany, we're often confounding cultural sector and cultural economy. And you were talking in your presentation about the culture and creative sector, which is a huge and large sector. And so I found it difficult to understand the real impact, because the economic sector about we are talking is not very clear for me. Do you get my question? Because when we're talking about the creative sector, we're talking about cinemas, about theaters, about big musical productions. Yeah. And I often have the impression that in between a little theater like a Consol and in between, for example, I don't know, Disney on Ice, we're talking about the cultural sector, but the emission of a theater and a big Disney production are so different that I often find it confusing and difficult to talk about people.
You're right. You're right. It's really different, and you will see when I will in the next session, when we are going a little bit further down each post of emission, like mobility, food, and you will see the difference, because in the cultural field is globally size matters. The bigger you are, of course, the bigger your carbon footprint is. And between a little theater and Disney World, of course, there is like a huge difference. The more people you attract, the more things you have inside, the more machinery, the more scenography you have, the bigger your impact. The smaller you are, of course, your footprint is really lighter, of course. And a way of it makes mistake, but when you want to apprehend globally a carbon footprint, when you don't have time to do it, really, you can multiply your economic chiffre d'affaires, the GDP of your sector, you multiply it by a factor, and you get around approximately the footprint of this sector. When you want to do it like without details, and usually there is a difference if you calculate it with analyzing the physical flows, but it gives you an idea of what it represents. So there is a link with the economic field and the carbon footprints. But this is linked to, you see the slide when you see the GDP with the energy consumption. But it can change if we use more renewable energy, and if we change the way we structure our economy around fossil fuels. It can change.
Okay, thank you, Héloise. Is there any other question? Yes, Nadia?
It's not a question actually, but I would like to say somehow that it makes me curious, the fact that it may sound not that pleasant, the reality right now, and it may sound not that pleasant just because the cultural sector passed 2 years in strange activity within the COVID restrictions. So maybe all cultural organizations, even the big ones or the smaller ones, somehow strive for a new social contact and new physical presence of the audiences and new things to discover. So I think it's maybe also the timing when you see such a report and you personally or collectively want to travel and want to be in contact and want to get to know other cultural events happening, and you were supposed not to do that for 2 years. So it may sound a bit unpleasant also because of the timing, and maybe if Corona didn't happen, then we could relate much more with the impact, and we could see that more as an opportunity than as something that needs to be followed and needs to be done. So that was something that I thought out of the presentation.
It's interesting, and maybe you're right, but I think it will always be hard because when you want to be more ecological, you spend more time and everything is slower and everything is harder. Because if you want to move around Europe without using plane, for instance, it takes a lot more time. And Nicola lived it when we went to Italy by train, and when we went back by train, it's like it's so much. It's more expensive. It takes more time, and it's frustrating because you know that if you take a plane, it's like 3 hours, and you're in your train and for like 20 hours, and you say, "What the fuck? What am I doing?"
But it's more beautiful also.
And
So,
for Greece especially, because for Greece there's no train.
Yeah, for Greece is going to be
it's
hard.
going to be a challenge. So right now, it's really complicated to try to do the best, because the world is not made for the ecological transition right now. It's made for fossil fuels century. So, but going fast, going cheap has a cost behind, and the cost behind is climate change. So yes, it's complicated because if you want to do the same as before, it's going to be more complicated to go around the world, to go to 100 festivals. But once you know the cost that is hidden behind everything, it's more complicated than that. But I understand that it's really, really hard to do the right thing right now, because the world, our society is not prepared for it, and everything is not prepared for more ecological ways. So it's really a challenge, and yeah, it's frustrating to renounce sometimes. I'm frustrated sometimes.